Conversations with God, Book 4, Awaken the Species by Neale Donald Walsch, narrated by the author, Namuna Cisse and Paul O'Connor. Dedication.
To those who see that neither their life nor their world is as wonderful as it was meant to be, but who know that both can be, and who now choose to make it so.
Author's Note.
I am aware that in the most recent book in the Conversations with God series, Home with God in a Life That Never Ends, written and published 10 years ago to this writing, it was indicated that it would be the final of these dialogues to be published and widely distributed by me. Yet life is an ever-changing mosaic, and given that all of us are one with God, we do have the ability to create what filmmakers would call an alternate ending to any story. Apparently, this is what's happened here. A new decision appears to have been made at a superconscious level, the level at which all souls function. I could have kept this latest dialogue private, but everything within me shouted, "Don't you dare!" With this public distribution of a new word-for-word transcription of my most recent conversation with God, I feel that I'm keeping a promise to God to do whatever I might be able to do to continue to place into the world the most important information I've ever been given. Information that, it has been demonstrated to me, can change in a positive way the daily experience of millions of people around the world. Notwithstanding the fact that all of the world's major religions speak of divine revelation from God to humans as having occurred throughout history, I perfectly well understand if some people feel that such a blessed event would presumably not occur in the life of an utterly imperfect and fault-ridden person, such as myself. I've always said, however, that it's not me, in the singular, who has conversations with God, but all of us, in the plural, all the time. Most people are simply calling it something else. All of us have the ability to access the highest wisdom within us, which we are invited to consider to be God working in and through us. The dialogue itself puts this succinctly in the voice of the divine. I talk to everyone all the time. The question is not, to whom do I talk? The question is, who listens? I therefore invite you to set aside whatever natural skepticism may arise regarding the source of the material found here, and to focus instead on whether or not what has been offered in this process has any value in the living of your individual life, and, more broadly, in the understanding of life itself. The text contains much information about life and death, and the time in between. It's filled with probably more metaphysical data than you may have been exposed to in one place in a very long time. At one point in the dialogue that follows, you may find yourself saying, "Speculation or not, this is utterly fascinating," yet then fairly be asking, "What good is knowing all of this? What does it have to do with my life and the improving of it, much less the improving of the lives of all of us on earth?" You'll see here that I asked question after question in my effort to render this dialogue meaningful and relevant. What I know is that today, with everything that's going on in the world, people are yearning and searching for a message of hope, faith, healing, and change. I found that this latest conversation with God offered me that, and this is why I let myself publicly share it. The exchange here contains a few tough assessments of where we are today. Yet these are offered not as judgments, but as flashlights, illuminating what we are now being invited to see and empowered to do. I know it sounds trite, but a better tomorrow, for us as individuals and for our civilization, is possible, very, very possible, if we will choose it. As the dialogue here makes clear, we are but one decision away. I hope you'll decide to make that decision after hearing what follows.
Introduction.
I awoke from a sound sleep on August 2nd, 2016. It was the urge that awakened me. I knew it well. I hadn't felt it in nearly 10 years, but I knew it well. I had no idea what time it was, but I thought to myself, if it's 4:23, will I need more of a sign than that? I glanced at the clock on my bedside table. 4:13 a.m. Of course, just enough time to pull myself out of bed for my 4:23 appointment. The first dialogue I ever had with God began at 4:23 in the morning, and every morning for weeks I would be awakened between 4:15 and 4:30 by a deep inward urge, get back to the dialogue. This pattern continued for months, and subsequently for years. I wondered if there was any significance to the timing of it, but ultimately I released any need to know. When the first Conversations with God material, scribbled on yellow legal pads, actually became a published book, I was told in the dialogue that it would, by the way, so I sent it to a publisher on a dare. I thought that maybe something important had taken place here. And when over 1 million people obtained the book, and I saw it being translated into 37 languages, I was shocked into certainty about that. Then it came to pass that requests for me to speak outside the United States began arriving, and I had to find my birth certificate in order to apply for a passport. Well, it was nowhere to be found among my personal papers, of course, so I applied to the records department of the government where I was born, paying the fee and asking to be sent an official copy. I was stunned when I opened the envelope and examined the document. Time of birth? 4:23 a.m. Of course. The fact that this experience of divine connection always seemed to be initiated near the same time every day that I came into the world somehow seemed meaningful to me. At the very least, I could not ignore the perfect symmetry of it. Through the years, then, whenever I found myself suddenly wide awake between 4:15 and 4:30 in the morning, eyes staring at the ceiling, a certain energy coursing through my body, I knew what was going on. I got up immediately, raced to my laptop, and opened myself to whatever wanted to come through. And so it was on this day, August 2nd, 2016. I've just thrown back the covers and pulled myself out of bed. Now, here I am. The only thing is, I didn't think I'd ever be doing this again. Let me explain. All of us are having what I've come to call conversations with God all the time. This was made clear to me on page 5 of the over 3,000 pages of the published CWG dialogues. So my experience was not unique, not uncommon. What was perhaps a bit unusual was that I had made a written record of my innermost encounters, and then sent it to a publisher, who in fact actually printed it and placed it in bookstores. I've come to understand and to experience that I, and all of us, have a deep and personal connection with God all the time, and that we may have an actual communication with the divine, asking for help, guidance, insight, and assistance whenever we wish. That was, in fact, the point of the book. It was placed into the world to open other people everywhere to this experience, to invite them to a new and more personal relationship with God. The feeling that I must have such a dialogue, however, that the time has come for such an interaction, signaled by a deep inner feeling welling within me that cannot be ignored, is something else altogether. I experience this as a feeling that comes over me, and I haven't had that feeling for nearly 10 years. So I've held the idea that I had encountered it for the last time. Oh, I knew I'd be writing again. I'll always be writing something. A column for Huffington Post, a blog for CWG Connect, a Facebook entry, an answer to someone posting a question that asked Neale, even a full-length book exploring in depth the messages I've received. Something, but another on-paper conversation with God? Another back-and-forth dialogue with deity? I thought those days were over. I thought that process was complete. I was wrong.
Chapter 1.
I didn't think I'd ever be doing this again. I thought this process was complete.
There's more to do. One more invitation, dear one.
I've already accepted two, Change the world's mind about God and give people back to themselves. I thought that was it.
I know. It wasn't time yet for the third.
Oh, so now it is.
Now it is.
Okay. What's the third? And by the way, will this be the last invitation?
Yes, this will be the last. And these invitations are, by the way, not just for you. They're for everyone. Although not everyone will accept them. Those who will accept them will self-identify.
I've always understood that the messages were not just for me. About those first two invitations, I've always understood that.
So now comes the third and final invitation, because it's the perfect time for advancement on your planet.
Wow, that really sounds exciting, especially when it feels like it's just the opposite. It seems as though our civilization is moving backward. It feels like we're becoming less civil, less tolerant, less capable of controlling our indulgences. by the way, to say nothing of controlling our anger, less able to access the better angels of our nature.
I'm glad you're seeing this, experiencing this, because if you pay attention to what's happening with you and around you, and do what you feel inwardly called to do in response to it, there's nothing to worry about.
Well, it certainly looks bad to me. But of course, I don't know if I'm just getting in my own way, getting into my judgment about things and can't really see clearly. I mean, there's a lot going on around this planet that I don't think should be happening.
It's not about what should or should not be happening. It's about what is happening, both in your individual and highly personal experience, as well as the experience of the collective called humanity, and how you can change, actually rather dramatically, what you may feel are the worst parts of that. This is the perfect time for you to begin making those alterations, because what's happening now, environmentally, politically, economically, socially, and spiritually, is providing you with conspicuous and unmistakable, incontrovertible, and crystal clear signs on how you can do that. And so, it's time for the third invitation.
Okay, I'm ready. We're all ready. What is it? What is the third invitation?
Awaken the species.
Chapter 2.